This is Tariff Collapse, and what I'm about to show you will make you question every sip of your morning cup. Because the truth is, not all coffee is coffee anymore. What's sitting in your pantry, what you're buying in grocery stores, even what's served in those smiling coffee chains, may be laced with fillers, additives, chemicals, and cheap substitutes that Europe and even some parts of Asia already rejected. In America, these blends are still on shelves, disguised behind flashy labels and promises of premium roast. But when lab tests expose ingredients like wheat, soy, cornstarch, caramel coloring, artificial flavors, and even banned preservatives, you begin to realize this isn't the pure coffee bean ritual you thought it was. It's a billion-dollar trick. And today, we're going to count down the 7 coffees that are not what they claim to be, exposing why you should stop drinking them before it's too late. Number 7. Folgers. Once trusted as America's classic breakfast coffee, Folgers has quietly become one of the biggest offenders when it comes to cutting corners. Independent lab tests have revealed that many Folgers blends are far from pure, 100% coffee beans. Instead, they're often mixed with cheaper fillers, low-grade Robusta beans, and in some cases even substances like cornstarch and maltodextrin that bulk up the product without you knowing. Add to that the heavy use of artificial flavors to simulate fresh roast and caramel coloring to mask staleness, and what you get is a cup that delivers more chemicals than caffeine. In Europe, stricter labeling laws would never allow a coffee to call itself 100% pure if additives were involved, but here in the US, loopholes let the brand skate by. Consumers who drink Folgers daily often complain about jittery highs, followed by brutal crashes, headaches, and even digestive issues, all signs of adulterated blends that aren't giving your body what real coffee should. And here's the kicker. Folgers continues to market itself as a wholesome, family-friendly choice while keeping these practices in the shadows. The brand may have been a symbol of American mornings in the 20th century, but in 2025 it's closer to a processed food product than an authentic coffee experience. Number 6. Maxwell House. For decades, Maxwell House carried the famous slogan, "Good to the last drop," but today many critics argue it should be "cheap to the last bean." Once marketed as premium coffee, Maxwell House has been exposed in multiple consumer investigations for quietly swapping out high-quality Arabica with cheaper Robusta beans, which are more bitter, harsher on the stomach, and loaded with higher caffeine that can trigger anxiety spikes in seniors and sensitive drinkers. But the real controversy lies in the hidden fillers. Reports have shown traces of soy, corn derivatives, and even malt flavoring inside certain blends, ingredients that bulk up volume at a fraction of the cost, while leaving you drinking something that's less coffee and more processed powder. To make matters worse, Maxwell House often relies on chemical flavor enhancers to recreate the aroma of freshly roasted beans, masking the fact that many of their grounds are pre-aged and stored for months in warehouses before reaching the shelf. In Europe, coffee labeled 100% must actually be just that, with 0 additives. But in the US, Maxwell House gets away with selling a cocktail of cheap beans and artificial notes under the same trusted logo your grandparents once loved. And that's not just marketing trickery. It's a betrayal of consumer trust. Many longtime drinkers have complained of strange aftertastes, headaches, digestive upset, and even allergic reactions, symptoms that don't line up with real, clean coffee. What used to be a household tradition has quietly transformed into a corporate product engineered for profit margins, not for your health. And every time you pour Maxwell House into your cup, you're fueling a system that values chemical shortcuts over genuine coffee beans. Number 5. Nescafé. Nescafé is one of the most recognizable coffee brands on the planet, but behind its sleek jars and instant convenience lies a reality that most consumers never question. Instant coffee by design is already a compromise. It's made from lower quality beans that are spray-dried or freeze-dried into granules, often sacrificing flavor for speed. But with Nescafé, the situation is far worse. Multiple investigations, including European consumer reports, have found significant amounts of fillers, stabilizers, and artificial flavors in their instant lines, meaning that every spoonful you stir into your cup is more chemical engineering than natural coffee extraction. And while Nestlé, the parent company, boasts about sourcing beans from across the globe, watchdog groups have exposed cases of labor exploitation in their supply chains, including reports of child labor on West African coffee farms tied to the brand. In fact, a 2023 NGO report revealed that some of Nescafé's beans were coming from plantations where workers earned less than $2 a day, conditions that Europe has been increasingly cracking down on, but which still slide under the radar in U.S. imports. On top of that, Nescafé's instant blends often contain high levels of acrylamide, a chemical byproduct of roasting that has been linked to cancer risk when consumed regularly. European regulators have strict thresholds for acrylamide in coffee products, but in the U.S., the FDA has left it largely unchecked, meaning American consumers are far more exposed. And then there's the taste. Many long-term Nescafé drinkers complain about a metallic aftertaste, dryness in the mouth, and a fake coffee smell that lingers long after the cup is empty. That's because what you're actually drinking is a rehydrated, processed powder where artificial aroma chemicals are sprayed back onto the granules to trick your senses into believing it's fresh. The tragic irony is that millions of people around the world, especially in the US, still trust Nescafé as their daily go-to, unaware that they're paying premium prices for what is essentially a mass-produced, diluted product that would never pass as pure coffee in stricter European markets. Every spoonful is a reminder of how far the industry has drifted from genuine coffee traditions and how consumers are left with a product that prioritizes convenience and profit at the expense of authenticity, safety, and even human rights. Number 4. Starbucks. For millions of Americans, Starbucks isn't just coffee. It's a lifestyle, a daily ritual, a third place between home and work. But peel back the shiny green logo and the smiling baristas, and you'll find a company that has quietly turned the art of coffee into a global fast food operation, with consequences most customers never see. Independent lab testing of Starbucks beans and ready-to-drink bottles has revealed alarming levels of pesticides, mold toxins like ochratoxin A, and acrylamide, a carcinogenic byproduct of over-roasting. In Europe, where regulations force companies to keep acrylamide levels far lower, Starbucks had to reformulate some of its products. But here in the US, the same caramel lattes and frappuccinos are loaded with sugars, syrups, artificial flavors, and stabilizers that make them closer to milkshakes than coffee. A single venti-flavored latte can contain over 60 grams of sugar, more than the daily recommended amount for an adult. Yet the menu still markets these drinks as energizing coffee beverages rather than desserts in disguise. And it doesn't stop there. Starbucks has faced repeated accusations of unethical sourcing, with watchdog groups tying portions of their supply chain to exploitative labor in Latin America and Africa. While the brand pushes glossy ad campaigns about fair trade and sustainability, countless farmers remain underpaid, struggling to survive while Starbucks sells their beans at premium prices in suburban malls. Add to this the environmental cost, billions of disposable plastic-lined cups each year, contributing to waste that Europe is moving to ban but the US still tolerates. Even the so-called healthier cold brew options are not safe. Tests have shown traces of excessive caffeine levels combined with hidden acidity regulators that can wreak havoc on sensitive stomachs. Former employees have also spoken out, describing how bulk coffee bags sometimes sit for months in warehouses before being brewed, losing freshness long before they reach your cup. The image of a handcrafted artisanal coffee simply doesn't match reality. Behind the counter, it's industrialized syrups, powders, and pre-flavored mixes engineered for consistency, not quality. Starbucks turned coffee into a processed commodity dressed up with whipped cream and branding, leaving customers hooked on sugar highs and chemical flavor notes instead of authentic beans. And the most unsettling truth? Many Americans genuinely believe they're drinking premium coffee, when in fact what they're consuming is closer to a lab-designed product that other countries have already forced to change. Starbucks isn't selling tradition, It's selling a globalized illusion, and every cup you buy fuels a system that values branding over authenticity and profit over purity. Number 3. Dunkin'. For years, Dunkin' was the friendly neighborhood competitor to Starbucks, the place where working Americans grabbed a cheap cup of coffee and a donut before heading to work. But behind its image of affordability and loyalty to everyday people, Dunkin' has quietly become one of the most misleading names in the entire coffee industry. Lab analysis of Dunkin's ground coffee and K-cup pods have revealed significant levels of mycotoxins, mold-based toxins that form when beans are stored improperly for too long. These compounds, including ochratoxin A, have been linked to kidney damage, immune suppression, and in long-term exposure, even cancer. In Europe, beans with these contamination levels are rejected at the border, but in the United States, they're still roasted, packaged, and sold under the smiling pink and orange logo. And if you think walking into a Dunkin' store for a fresh brew is safer, think again. Most of their drinks are loaded with artificial creamers, stabilizers, and flavor enhancers. In some cases, a medium-iced coffee can carry up to 50 grams of added sugar, hidden behind vague menu names like Flavor Swirl. Customers believe they're ordering a simple coffee, but what they're getting is a sugar bomb with chemical additives that drive cravings and blood sugar crashes. On top of that, Dunkin' relies heavily on cheaper Robusta beans blended with low-grade Arabica, masking the bitterness with sweeteners and syrups. Former supply chain workers have even reported beans arriving in bulk containers, already stale by the time they hit the roasters, a cost-cutting measure that maximizes profit at the expense of quality. Dunkin' also faces growing criticism for its environmental footprint. Billions of single-use plastic cups and lids, a reliance on palm oil-based flavorings, and a refusal to adopt the stricter recycling measures enforced in the EU. And perhaps the most unsettling aspect is transparency. Unlike some competitors, Dunkin' has been notoriously reluctant to publish detailed sourcing data or independent certifications, leaving consumers in the dark about where their coffee actually comes from. The company hides behind branding campaigns about America running on Dunkin', but in truth, it's America running on additives, shortcuts, and outdated practices that other countries would never accept. What's sold as an affordable pick-me-up has morphed into one of the most processed coffee products in the U.S., stripping away the very authenticity that made coffee a trusted ritual for generations. Every sip is a reminder that Dunkin' is no longer the humble corner coffee shop. It's a corporate machine feeding you a mix of stale beans, chemicals, and sugar under the disguise of a good deal. Number 2, McCafe. When McDonald's first launched McCafe, it was sold as the chain's step into premium coffee, an attempt to rival Starbucks while keeping prices low. But peel back the glossy marketing, and you'll discover that McCafe is one of the most troubling names in the coffee industry today. Independent audits have revealed that McDonald's sources massive volumes of low-grade beans, often Robusta-heavy blends from regions with minimal oversight, where pesticides are used far more aggressively than international standards allow. In fact, Greenpeace and other watchdog organizations have repeatedly flagged McDonald's suppliers for overuse of glyphosate and other herbicides on coffee farms, chemicals that Europe has either restricted or outright banned. Yet these beans are roasted, packaged, and brewed into millions of McCafe cups every single day across the United States, and the health risks don't stop at pesticides. Tests on McCafe instant and ground coffee products have uncovered elevated levels of acrylamide, the carcinogenic compound formed during roasting, at concentrations far higher than European limits. While U.S. regulators have stayed largely silent, scientists warn that regular consumption of acrylamide in coffee could quietly raise long-term cancer risks, especially for seniors and heavy coffee drinkers. But what may be even more disturbing is the supply chain itself. Investigations have linked McCafe's beans to plantations in Latin America and Africa, where workers earn less than $3 a day, often under unsafe conditions, with documented cases of child labor. While McDonald's corporate office runs campaigns about sustainable sourcing, insiders describe a system designed to chase volume, not ethics. And because McCafe is tied to the fast food empire, the drinks themselves are engineered more like desserts than coffee. Oversized lattes packed with creamers, syrups, artificial thickeners, and sugar levels exceeding 70 grams in a single large cup. That's double the daily recommended sugar intake in just one drink. Customers think they're paying for a cheap caffeine boost, but in reality, they're fueling their bodies with a chemical cocktail that drives insulin spikes, weight gain, and fatigue. Former employees have even admitted that McCafe machines are notoriously difficult to clean properly, with internal reports showing dangerous bacteria buildup when they aren't maintained daily, meaning contamination risks are higher than consumers realize. Combine this with stale beans that can sit in bulk storage for months, and what you have is a drink that is far removed from anything resembling authentic coffee. McCafe isn't a premium experience. It's a carefully packaged illusion, a product, of industrial shortcuts that Europe's tighter food laws would never tolerate at this scale. And yet in America, millions line up every morning, unknowingly swapping real coffee traditions for a sugary, chemical-laced brew that's been stripped of both quality and integrity. Every McCafe cup represents the triumph of marketing over substance, leaving consumers not just misled but potentially harmed in the long run. Number 1. Keurig Green Mountain. Keurig built its empire by changing how Americans drink coffee, not by quality, but by convenience. Those colorful little K-cups that promise a perfect cup in seconds have become a billion-dollar business, but they may also be the most dangerous form of coffee on the market. Inside each pod is not just coffee. Consumer tests have found residues of mold toxins, heavy metals from low-grade beans, and chemical plastics that can leach into your cup when exposed to the high heat of the brewing process. In fact, several independent lab studies have shown that BPA, styrene, and other endocrine-disrupting compounds, substances linked to hormonal imbalances, infertility, and even cancer, can migrate from the thin plastic linings of K-cups directly into the hot liquid you drink. Europe has already banned many of these compounds in food contact plastics, but in the United States, loopholes allow Keurig to keep selling them by the billions. And if you think you're getting 100% coffee, think again. Many Keurig pods contain blends cut with artificial flavors, stabilizers, and fillers, from caramel coloring to soy-based additives, designed to simulate the aroma and taste of freshly brewed beans. The reality is closer to flavored powder sealed in plastic than to authentic coffee. And then there's the environmental catastrophe. Over 50 billion K-cups have ended up in landfills worldwide, creating mountains of non-biodegradable waste. Even though the company now advertises recyclable pods, most recycling facilities reject them because the tiny size and food contamination make them impossible to process. In other words, every cup you brew contributes to a growing plastic crisis that future generations will be forced to deal with. But perhaps the darkest secret lies in what Keurig doesn't tell you about freshness. Unlike traditional coffee that's ground and brewed within days or weeks, K-cups can sit sealed on shelves for years. That means what you're drinking could be stale beans processed long ago, then injected with chemical aroma sprays to trick your nose into believing it's fresh. Former insiders have admitted that coffee freshness in K-cups is mostly an illusion, carefully engineered through flavor chemistry. Combine that with the fact that many pods clock in at shocking levels of acrylamide, and you begin to realize you're paying premium prices for a cup that's equal parts stale coffee, chemical additives, and heated plastic. Keurig didn't just sell convenience. It sold America a dangerous illusion, one that Europe's stricter laws and environmental policies would never permit at this scale. And yet millions of Americans press that button every morning, never realizing they're sipping something far removed from real coffee with risks that go far beyond caffeine jitters. The brand's slogan might as well be fast, easy, and toxic. So there you have it. 7 coffees that are not what they claim to be. From Folgers to Keurig, the brands we trusted for decades have quietly shifted from real beans to shortcuts, fillers, chemicals, and marketing illusions. In Europe, many of these practices are banned outright, But here in the United States, the loopholes remain wide open, leaving American consumers exposed to risks they don't even know exist. What used to be a sacred ritual, a pure cup of coffee in the morning, has been turned into a corporate game of cost-cutting and deception. And the scariest part is that most people still believe they're drinking something safe, authentic, and wholesome. The next time you brew a cup or stop by a coffee chain, ask yourself, are you fueling your body with real coffee or with a lab-engineered product designed to trick your senses while draining your health? This is a tariff collapse, and we'll keep exposing the truths that corporations want hidden. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these brands shocked you the most? Have you noticed the strange aftertastes, the sugar crashes, the headaches? Drop your story in the comments and don't forget to subscribe, because the food and drinks we trust every day may be hiding far more than you think.